The podcast you're listening to now is unthinkable without the use of the modern computer. That's something we can all agree on. But have you ever stopped to consider the intricate web of connections that brought its component parts together? Not the computer, but the podcast itself. Over 30 years ago now, a sciencey sort of chap was idly sitting in rural Dorset when an idea struck him. Why not join the Doctor Who Appreciation Society? So he sent off a self-addressed envelope and waited by his letterbox for a few weeks. Communication in those days didn't involve anything so advanced as email. Meanwhile, in Salisbury, another fellow was spending his spare time writing all manner of exciting stories as fast as his pen could manage. No word processing software then, you see. Also, at this time, far away in Essex, a young lady could be heard going, "Ugh," when the little Malice was sick in the TARDIS. To be honest, I think most of us did. At first glance, you wouldn't think that these three people had much in common at all, apart from a certain television series, of course. But the story of how they came together and what that first meeting led to has a direct connection with what you're currently experiencing. Ladies and gentlemen, with brilliantly inspired ideas but unquestionably expired beige 70s jackets, it's episode 12 of Round the Archives.
And now on BBC One, the science fiction serial for older children, The Changes. Episode 6, A Pile of Stones.
When Nikki is discovered in a barn near some old farm machinery, she is dragged off to be tried as a witch. For, as Davy Gordon, the head man of the village, puts it, no ordinary human person could rest peacefully among all that wickedness.
Hello!
Hello. Good evening.
Oh. Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Round the Archives.
Is it episode 12?
It is episode 12.
Okay,
It
that's
is.
me.
I
Yeah,
know.
that's
I got
fine.
it wrong on the intro because
Oh,
I said
okay.
episode 11.
You
Which,
did.
Which people might have noticed the cut because my voice changes. But yes, I might as well admit that now. But it's episode 12 Around the Archives. I'm Andrew.
I'm Lisa.
And I'm Warren.
Warren will be popping in and out.
Oh.
And he's going to pop out any minute now if we're not careful.
Yes.
I don't think there's any odds and ends left over from episode 11.
No, possibly not.
Though we did get some new countries. Hello, Japan and the Philippines.
Yes, hello.
Greetings, salutations.
Ah, very good. We're going to kick off with a guest piece. So we've got Mr. Nick Goodman talking about that well-known children's serial, The Changes. So let's zoom over to Salisbury and see what Nick's got to say.
Okay.
Back soon.
Bye-bye.
Hello, listeners. We are on OB. We're not on film. We're cheap, aren't we?
Well, yes. I mean, considering what we're about to talk about,
Yes.
I
And
feel
we're
a
with
bit
Nick-
guilty of being on cheap because it was all done on film.
We're in Nick's living room again.
Living, yes.
I remember we haven't moved.
Move again.
Well, we're still on the same
That
sofa.
makes it sound like you've been away and come back.
I
You
can.
have been away and come back.
Well, no, I can.
This might be a different issue.
I have no idea. Nick,
Yes.
tell me about The Changes.
I love The Changes.
Do you?
Yes. I was.
Well, that's good.
I was 6 years old when it started. We're talking January '75. Tom
Yes.
had just sat on the throne, as it were, as Doctor Who, and anything basically from the children's watchy era I was sort of into, but this was a quite massive thing because it had newspaper. They had the the panel, as it were, on in the Radio Times, and an announcement at the beginning saying some scenes must be unsuitable for young children. Now, my mother, being a liberal lady, I obviously was not too bothered about me being traumatized by burning cranes or whatever. It was good fun, character building, and it was intriguing. I mean, I took an instant shine to Vicky Williams. I mean, I have to say here and now, I was a tart at 6, and I'm still a tart. I was always losing
Notice
my
I
heart.
didn't deny it then.
But yeah, Vicky Williams, there was something about her that is kind of still a feeling. You know, she's just such an innocent in it, and she's just your average. But sort of spotty kid, you know.
Just run us briefly through what the setup of the first episode is.
The setup of the first episode is a normal family in a normal street watching the telly, and the telly goes fuzzy, and I think it's Corbett, that fellow
Woodall?
Woodall? The one that I don't remember whatsoever.
The one that's
he's
on the
always
goodies
turning up
a
at the
lot.
goodies
Yes.
a lot. Yeah, but he goes fuzzy, and they say, "What's wrong with the telly?" Her Bernard Horsfall as the dad has this fit and smashes the telly, and all around everybody's smashing all kind of technology and saying it's evil, and all machinery, and the whole country is in turmoil. It's sort of, if you imagine a sort of Luddite riot. If you replace the deadly virus and the survivors with a kind of a Luddite riot, then you've basically got the changes. Although survivors was about 4 months later, but yes, it was, and the sort of this one girl trying to work out what it was all about. It was an adaptation of 3 books by Peter Dickinson.
Yes,
not to be confused with
the other
one in the Old School Eye.
Your acting colleague.
Yeah, my acting colleague. Because my actual
did you ever
colleague
tell him you thought it was really good?
Well, yes, he used to go around. I wrote that. But no, it's expertly, and I do mean expertly, adapted by Anna Holmes, because I've read 2 of the books, I think 2 of the 3 books, and of course they're all disparate characters.
Yes,
and so he takes Vicky Gore, who's one of them. Oh, sorry, Nikki Gore, played by Vicky, and it sort of has her as a through line through the whole thing, which I think is very clever, because you obviously you get to know them, and then she picks up various friends along the way. And a lot of people find the middle dull. I don't. I find it very exciting. I mean, she gets accused of witchcraft, and they go burn her. And I was terribly into it when I was a kid.
Ironically, originally you had copies of episode 1 and episode 10.
Yes,
with
terrible quality,
with dreadful quality, but with no middle episodes at all.
Right.
So, did you have any idea what happened in the middle?
Because I remember it.
You did remember it.
I have. There's a whole thing where they team up with the Sikhs.
Yeah.
And there's a whole thing where they liberate a village from barons. The chief one played by Edward Brayshaw from Renegades. Now, I don't really have a great deal of recollection of that, but I do recall David Garfield as a sort of mad preacher in it, or the head man, who's turned a little weird, and I remember him being a really good booable baddie, and wanting to leap into the telly and rescue this poor girl from terrible fate, and also very nice Melina Kendall. I think, is it Kendall? I can't remember. But I mean, she comes into it too, and the family within the village, including Stella Tanner, who's frequently can be found in Q series, here being serious. And again, as well as when we were saying about Children of the Stone, some really good actors. Bernard Horsfall, you've got Oscar Cusack, who's always that really scary looking, sort of mass murdery kind of serial killer look, and you've got good old Tom Shadbourne,
yes,
and you've got wonderful Bernard Horsfall and David Garfield being very scary, and there's something. And it's just a lot of, as I say, a lot of people find it dull, the middle bit. I remember it well enough to remember the bit at the end, and the bit. It was just a magical show for me.
I mean, it's interesting you said about Survivors. It does tap into a very 70s thing about a rejection of technology, or a fear that technology will fail. Because you've had you've had like the sort of power cuts, and
Absolutely.
miners' strikes. You get the changes, you get
Yes.
survivors, but you even get things like The Good Life, which is about moving
Absolutely.
away.
It's a benign survivors, isn't it? Yeah. There's a lot of kind of thought. I think it emerges, I would say, because the very beginning of the changes was published right at the end of the 60s, the books.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of concern with the hippie thing and turning against established ideas and kind of the whole thing, okay, so we haven't got established ideas, where are we going?
Yeah.
So I think there was a lot of that kind of concern. And again, the thing about that makes it so good is it was just done with so much thought.
Yeah.
And the production values are, in a sense, even better than Children, because it's all on film, all consistently on film. There was a horrible rumour when we first started getting copies of things that a lot of the episodes didn't exist,
Yeah.
and that was all that's left. And I thought, oh! And then, of course, and Lisa will remember this because I asked her to tape it for me. In '94, they said we're going to show all the changes.
Yay.
And it was just one of those little personal shows which kind of
'Cause
really caught your imagination. You've really followed on the story, and it was intriguing, and you wanted to find out what's happened.
Because you've also got Paddy Kingsland,
Yes.
doing the theme music and some incidental
Yes.
stuff. That's very early for him.
Very
as
early
well.
Paddy, yes.
But you can tell it's him. Can't
Yeah,
you?
yes. It's that kind of melancholy kind of quality he had, which I do like Paddy Kingston, I must
Yeah.
admit. I actually was on this, diverting a little bit, but I was on Facebook to Mark Ayres saying, well, when are we going to get a CD of Paddy? And all in good time. I thought it's been 17 years since the last release. But yeah, I would, if there was a release of Paddy's stuff. I mean, I've got a bit of his change of music actually on one of the radiophonic workshop
Oh, right.
CDs.
Okay. Yeah. Because there were a
yes.
number of releases of sort of BBC LPs and
Yes.
things like that.
So as I'm
radiophonic
speaking, I
and stuff.
suddenly thought, well, actually, I have got some Paddy. On that, it's got a whole medley of his changes
Yeah.
work. But yes, very early Paddy. Again, I actually remember the theme music even before I got I remember it. And the sort of the stone, which was apparently a polystyrene rock, which that was done at Clearwell Caves.
all right.
It's
Yes.
in the Forest of Dean.
Yes.
We went down there, and I don't think I was quite brave
interviewed The
enough
Rock.
to. I don't think I was quite brave enough to. This actually, I mean, I'm squididdling a bit, but this actually links into Children of the Stones. Of course, props that are credibly there
Yeah.
during the time can be a great false candy for like someone like me who was a little kid who liked gimmicks. And I did actually, with that bit in Children of the Stones, there's this false water trough which leads into Hendrix's control room.
All right.
He opens up the panels and you can actually go in. And I did, my first trip to Avesbury after Children of the Stones, I did look for that. And my mum sort of had, I think it might have been a prop, yeah. Again, you had the prop in of Children of the Stones, with the changes, should I say. But the thing is, it's one of those things where you get enough answers to actually, at the end, to answer pretty well what it's all about, but you don't get all of them.
No, so it's
it
left in your
Yes.
imagination of it.
You do hold
But
back.
that involves you, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
but these days they hold too much back at the end, and you know, what's that about? And then they gave you enough to but they did leave some questions. But like, you're quite right though. The alternative lifestyle thing, it definitely was.
It's very much a 70s thing.
Yes.
You don't get those sort of stories being told in the
Yes.
80s. It's weird.
And you get the old yokels who are hardly touched by they say, well, we don't want anything to do with that. Well, they might have uttered that even before the changes, but you get the young farmer who likes all the tractors and the real mechanical stuff. But the way it's done is actually quite frightening in the sort of claustrophobia of this girl being on her own, and even rewatching it all the years later, I was still got me hooked. And again, it's just that marvellous kind of. It's the real world. It's a credible real world. And Bristol, I went to Corton in Bristol in my younger days, so I know those hills quite well. Marvellous, you know, and just so, and very ahead of its time, really,
Yeah.
because you had Sikh characters.
Yeah.
And you had a strong female lead on her own, and you had big questions about where we're going with technology.
And thank you very much to Nick for
Yes,
his
thank
lovely
you,
piece
Nick.
on the changes.
He's obviously very fond of the changes.
Well, quite right too.
Parts of the changes.
We, I think Nick and I got slightly confused about the identity of the newsreader, though. We said it was Corbett Woodall, who often pops up in the goodies. The chap who plays the part isn't actually credited on screen, but IMDb lists newsreader uncredited Jeremy Carrad. And we looked up Jeremy Carrad, and he was anchor of the BBC West news programme Points West from 1962 to 1976. So that makes sense if he was appearing in something filmed around Bristol, you see.
Mm-hmm.
The BFI actually released the changes on DVD, and you do get a nice booklet with it.
Yes.
Though I do take issue with one paragraph on page 22, and I just want to read it. It says, along with the Owl Service, 1969 to 70, The Stone Tape, 1972, Children of the Stones, 1977, King of the Castle, 1977, and Raven, 2002 to 2010, the changes became part of a rich seam of children's television running through the 1960s and 70s that delved deep into Arthurian magic, Gaia myths, and the occult history of Britain. It's all right until you think about that, because it says, A, The Stone Tape,
Yeah, which
was definitely not a children's programme. And they say Raven 2002 to 2010.
Yes.
I think they've got the wrong Raven
I
there.
think they have, yes.
Because Raven 2002 to 2010 is, of course, the BBC Scotland adventure game show.
Right.
Not the Raven that they're thinking about.
Which is the one with Phil Daniels.
Which is also, I think, 1977.
Yeah, something like that. It's
Yes.
late 70s.
Hang on, I will just check which Raven that was. But but otherwise, it's yes, it was 1977 for Raven. Yes. Otherwise, I think that's it for the notes on that. And now we zoom on to James Burke's Connections, and Warren's going to join us for the discussion.
Warren's going to pop up.
Yes. Boing.
Boing.
That's Zebedee.
Okay.
Zebedee popped up. Well, Zebedee popped down, actually. But
Yeah.
Okay, here comes Warren and James Burke and Connections. Ta-ra!
Bye.
And we're back. Hello.
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 Warren is here.
Hello.
Hello.
And we've just been watching James Burke
Yes.
Yes.
with Connections.
Connections.
And we've been watching episode 6 of Connections, which is
Skies of Thunder.
Thunder in the Skies.
That's it.
That's the one.
Nice.
Very good. From the 21st of November 1978.
Right.
Now, Warren.
Hello.
Hello, Warren. You got Connections on DVD
I did, yeah.
slightly before me, and you, I think you finished watching it before I'd even started.
I binged watched.
So,
Binge-watched.
why is James Burke's Connections? Why did it work for you? Why was it such a good series?
Mainly because of the presenter, and he is the teacher that I never had.
Right.
I think he's one of these guys, without getting too deep here, transcends a lot of barriers. We were talking about it. He's comedic.
You said he's got a bit of a stand-up comedian in his
He has.
presenting style.
He
It's
has.
quite a dry sense of humour, isn't it?
It is dry, yeah.
But he's engaging you as an audience.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
almost, and he always asks you questions,
Yeah.
don't you think? Isn't it? So it's almost, and he's dragging you into the journey that he's taking you on, and it is very random in some cases, but it is another alternative viewpoint. As far as things like science go, I'm not a great scientific reader, and the best way to learn to do science, I always find, was to do it practically. So I'm more of what they call an activist,
Hands-on.
hands-on, and he is hands-on, isn't he? He's taking you, going, look, this is where we're going.
Now, to explain the series a bit, it's a series about how inventions occur,
Yeah.
and it's like the social history of change in terms of science, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's
So the episode we watched starts with chimneys and ends up with Concorde.
yeah, a
Which-
very nervous man standing on the top of Concorde.
Yeah, he ends up stood on top of Concorde. But the way he gets to it is, I think, very interesting. There's a book available of the series, which I think you got for me. Was it you got me?
Yeah, I think it was you bought it. Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah, this is a few years ago now.
So I know you mentioned the season. You mentioned the series once.
But I remember seeing Connections on the telly in 1978. As usual, let's do our little bit of context. And I've got BBC Genome up. 21st of November 1978 is a Tuesday. And BBC One, well, apart from You and Me at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, What's My Shape with Wendy Padbury. You may wish to comment on what Wendy Padbury's shape is, I don't know. Jackanory, The Dribblesome Teapots with Kenneth Williams. Screen Test, Record Breakers, Nationwide. David Essex, with special guest star Jeremy Irons. And James Burke's Connections, Thunder in the Sky. James Burke takes a look at 2,000 years of human ingenuity. In the 6th of 10 historical detective stories, he searches for the clues that link yesterday's amazing inventions to our modern world. This week he asks, what's the connection between skating on the Thames and making love in private, or between the invention of soda water and the scent spray, and how does that connection lead to packaged tours in Mallorca? Money, as he says. Warren, you have you noticed something when watching this. How many drinks does he take during the course of this show?
I think he's a bit of a lash, isn't he? He's had 4 drinks.
You said he reminds me of you. Is it that?
Reminds you of me.
He reminds you of me.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, what
Is that
aspects
right?
could that be?
But you said the science and the love of he's
Alcohol.
because his first drink is taken in the snowy wastelands of Greenland.
He's on a snow scare,
Snow
a powerful sledge, isn't it?
thing.
From the middle of nowhere, he produces this jug of red wine.
Because he's
doesn't he?
lamenting the fact that the change of climate in sort of medieval times led to not being able to grow vines. So he was moaning that you couldn't drink wine.
Rubbish.
And then he has a glass.
He hadn't had a glass for a while.
You said he's had more than one glass by the look of it, hasn't he? Because he pours it out of the
It
jug.
takes a while to come
and
out
the jug's
jug.
quite empty.
Yeah.
And then he zooms off on his snow sledge.
At great speed.
So you'd nick him for that, would you?
Yeah, he'd be coming in.
Yeah. And then later on, he's got his dimpled glass of beer. One of those proper pint glasses.
Proper pint glass.
From the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also got some soda water.
We suspiciously think might have gin in
He's
it.
probably got a load of gin in it. But it starts off with the chimney, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Although, as you said, they start off in like a medieval hall where everybody's living in the hall, and there's this fire made out of logs. And it's your thing about it's got a blue flame, isn't it? So it's clearly actually being made by a gas burner.
Raymond Cusick fire.
Yeah, the you've got Raymond Cusick and Michael John Harris working as designer and special effects on this show. But yeah, we soon sort of jump from that to the chimney, which leads to Hardwick Hall, or Glass the Wall, as they say.
Yeah.
Now, Lisa,
Yes.
your sort of ears pricked up at Hardwick Hall,
Yes.
didn't they? Because you know a bit
Well,
about.
I've
Hardwick Hall.
looked a bit up about
Why do you know about Hardwick Hall?
because Hardwick Hall is the ancestral home of Bess of Hardwick.
Who was Bess of Hardwick?
Bess of Hardwick was, well, at the point she remade Hardwick Hall, she was the Countess of Shrewsbury.
Right.
But she had fallen out with the Count of Earl of Shrewsbury, and he banned her from Chatsworth House,
All right. Okay.
which is the home of the Duke of Devonshire now,
Yeah.
who is also a relation of... Basically, everybody who's an aristocrat now is probably related to Bess of Hardwick in some way,
Right.
including the royal family.
So, how many monarchs did she live
She
through?
lived through 6 monarchs,
Oh, blimey.
because she was 81 or so when she died.
Right.
And she lived through 6 monarchs, which is Henry VIII,
Mm-hmm.
Edward VI, Lady Jane Grey, who was a monarch for only 9 days, but still counts,
Yeah.
though she's never published in the list of kings and queens. Mary I, Elizabeth I, and James I.
All right. Now, she's got a link with the Cecil family.
The Cecil family, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and somebody here's got a link with the Cecil family.
Yeah,
I
well,
don't
we'll
know
do
why.
her link first, and then we'll
Yes.
come to
Yeah.
our link
Well,
with the Cecil family.
Her link with the Cecil family is the fact that when she fell out with her husband, various people got involved because apparently there was quite a lot of bickering involved. Not that, we don't bicker, do we?
No.
Do we bicker, Warren?
Yes.
What are you asking me for? I'm not talking to you.
He's not getting involved. That's all right.
But yes, anyway, so she petitioned William Cecil,
Yeah.
Lord Burleigh, where the Burleigh horse charms come from,
Mm-hmm.
his house. And his son, Robert Cecil, coined the phrase Hardwick Hall.
More glass than wall.
Yeah.
That's the second time.
So, yes.
This is going to become a catchphrase.
It
isn't
is.
It? Yeah.
So that's her link. And when I think of Robert Cecil, I always
Yeah.
think of Toby Jones.
All right. Okay.
Because Toby Jones played him in the Channel 4 drama about Elizabeth I.
I must apologise for our noisy neighbour who appears to be. He appears to have got his strimmer out at this point.
Again.
Oh dear, but we'll keep going. I'm sure. Yes, this strange grinding noises is nothing to do with my stomach. Don't worry.
No, for once.
But yes, so so Warren, what's your link with the Cecils?
Cecil's, my mother was a housekeeper and I was the underfootman.
Oh, so were you? What was your role then? What did you have to do?
That was when I was a teenager and a weekend job at school, when I was just coming to the end of school, and that was things like laying fires in the manor house,
All right.
cleaning some of the silverware, polishing the boots.
Is this where you got your posh voice from? Because somebody said to you the other day that you had a posh voice.
I was coming
wasn't
into that, yeah. I said, where did you get that from? Somebody said to me when I said, "You're too posh to be a copper." I went, okay. No, it's not a posh voice. Do you think it's a posh voice?
I think it's quite an educated
It's clear.
voice.
It's a clear
It's definitely
voice.
not educated, I can assure you. I don't know where to go with that one.
All right, okay. But you had to
Yeah, I was,
exude an air of civilization. Is that right?
yes, I spoke when I was spoken to. But other than that, yeah, I worked there and did an apprenticeship to become a under butler.
All right.
So is that the Earl of Salisbury?
He's the Marquess of Salisbury, whose family seat is Hatfield House.
Yeah.
And amazingly enough, when you say Robert Cecil at that particular moment was Lord Cranbourne when I was employed there.
And he's like the eldest son
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, brilliant. But yeah, this.
They
This
have a
thing-
television link.
Oh, what's their
Sorry.
television link? Oh, go on.
Former sister-in-law to him was Diana Rigg.
Oh.
Sorry, that suddenly sprung into
Oh,
my head there.
yes, you said she used to come.
Yes,
she
met
used to
Diana
visit,
Rigg.
didn't
Yes,
you?
yeah.
She used to come round, yeah.
Or
so-
Diana Sterling, as she was then.
Yes. Oh, Hardwick Hall is not to be confused with Hardwick House either, is it? Which is the infamous 1987 sitcom produced by Central that was so badly received. Only the first 2 episodes were ever shown. That was like one of Roy Kinnear's last things. But yes, this episode of Connections also goes into making glass, cannon boring as well.
Yeah.
Now this when we were watching this prompted another memory of your school days, didn't it, Warren? About
The dust
about-
suddenly blew off one of my memories, yes.
about metalwork.
We had a metalwork teacher called Mr. Thomas, and you said he was very Welsh.
Very Welsh,
He was
Mr.
very
Thomas.
Welsh boy, yes.
Yes.
So I want you all to think about your last project before the end of term. You'll all be marked on this, and depending whether you do very well here, lads, you'll go forward, and you might want to choose metalwork as a full-time subject.
Did you?
No, did I buggery? No. So most of the people just did screwdrivers,
Right.
which that was the boring that we were watching on the system, and turning the screwdrivers. I built a chicken feeder. Oh, that's bloody marvellous! I can't do that. The accent's gone. He said that's bloody marvellous. He said, oh, that's cracking, boy. So that's really good. I've never seen a chicken feeder like that before. And he gave me an A+ for a chicken feeder.
Oh.
Amazing.
Easily impressed.
Very easily impressed. So I went on to do woodwork because I hated metalwork.
But James Burke, let's talk about him. You said you sort of rediscovered... Well, you didn't rediscover it. You discovered Connections by thinking, is James Burke still alive?
Yeah, it was just a simple thing of... I don't know... It might have been something called... It was. I was going through YouTube and I saw the Apollo 13 stuff. Oh, is James Burke still knocking around? Oh, yes, he is. Connections. Looked up Connections. The first thing I then looked onto was straight onto YouTube.
Yeah.
Just as a reference point, and there was an episode on that they have got them on there. I thought, okay, right, this looks interesting. I'll give it a bash. But also noticed the book was on.
Yes.
Is still available on Amazon. To accompany the television
You're not
series.
on a cut of the book, I hope.
No.
Never mind.
As they would say at the end of the programme, there is a book that accompanies this series. It's available at all good bookshops.
But James Burke, born in Derry, Northern Ireland, educated at Maidstone Grammar School and Jesus College, Oxford. His MA is actually in Middle English. Nothing to do with science at all.
Which was amazing, because I thought he was a scientist.
Well,
genuinely thought he was a scientist.
That's... of my era, I just about remember him sort of doing stuff because he does the Apollo coverage, and Tomorrow's World as well. There's a few bits, black and white bits and pieces, knocking about because he was presenter for the moon landings, along with Patrick Moore. And you said you'd seen some of the Apollo 13 stuff.
Yeah, there's a really interesting where the Apollo 13 comes into the atmosphere, so they lose all radio contact. And they've set up the usual BBC setup with a few monitors on the desk, and he's leaning forward, and he's got his hand over his ear, which he's clearly holding his earpiece in. And by the side of his left-hand side of his head is his hand. It's very Troughton-esque because he's got his fingers crossed.
All right.
And the camera just slowly zooms in on him.
Yeah.
It didn't seem staged at all.
I was going to say, that's not fake, is it?
No, it wasn't fake
him.
at all. He was and it's quite interesting because if you watch the piece that exists, because it's there's very little of it that actually exists, the 13 television coverage. But the tension in that room is genuine. They are seriously expecting them not to return, to burn up in the atmosphere.
Yeah. But Connections is a sort of 10-episode series. The first episode I don't think is terribly representative of the way the series goes, because it's all to do with, as we briefly talk about in Nick's Changes article, the failure of technology. It's about how a single component caused a massive power cut across North America.
And the regression that we would go through.
Yes, he basically starts to take away technology. And if you went to a farm with no electricity, would you be able to survive? So this is basically sort of going through the mechanics of survivors. And things
also
like
the
that.
fact that we are losing touch through mechanicalisation and technology, the basics of life.
Yeah, it's people's inability to actually do simple stuff.
Yeah.
But that's... I get the feeling that first episode was sort of a bit on its own, because then the series that follows on is slightly different.
Yeah. More whimsical as well, I'd say.
Yeah. You can tell he's starting to relax by about episode 3, because you do get this sort of wry sense of humour coming in.
The man in beige, as I remember. fantastic.
It's the 70s, everybody wore beige.
Yeah, but he carries it so well, as he has the 70s archetypal hairstyle, the glasses and the beige, but you're not interested in what he's wearing, what he looks like. You're interested in what he says, and that is the thing. He could be in any absurd situation, but you are really interested in what he's telling you because it's presented in such a way that it's easy definable chunks. Yeah, if you're not science-minded, it appeals to the wider audience. And there you go. You've got when it was 8 o'clock, was it the
7:20? Yes,
7:20.
yeah.
So it's primetime TV.
Yeah, I mean, there were follow-up series to it, Connections 2 and 3,
Yeah.
or Connections Squared and Cubed. I'm not sure. And 1994 and 1997.
Yeah.
You said you'd seen some of this
Yeah.
later stuff, but
Yeah.
it didn't quite work as well. Did you feel?
No,
or not?
the one of the episodes that I saw, because it was made by a public broadcasting service in the States, as opposed to this was a.
I mean, this is BBC with, I think, Time Life
Time
are
Life, yeah.
sort of associated with it, yeah. But
and it seemed very much a case of Series 2 was a reworking of Series 1 and a revisiting of Series 1 to add a bit more to it, but it was also a refresher as well.
there's also another series, the Day the Universe Changed, which I vaguely remember,
Oh, I don't know
from BBC. That's 1985. I'm not. I think that was. It was released on DVD actually. In 2009, according to this. So that might be worth looking up actually. Yeah. Again, I vaguely remember it, but nothing much sticks in my mind. But yeah, I think it's one of those sort of important sort of documentary series, which again sort of. It's quite a time capsule, isn't it, about people's concerns in the late 70s? Because there's the stuff about the sort of nuclear bomb in the suitcase,
Yes.
isn't it? And you say about the Enola Gay as well, the talking about the nuclear bomb and stuff. And again, that's a quite a late 70s, early 80s sort of time capsule, isn't it, really?
Always reinforces the fact that nothing goes in a straight line.
No.
And nothing is invented in isolation. There is always a reason, be it to exploit or to improve.
And it's usually frilly knickers, isn't it?
Frilly knickers, yes.
Because one of his best
Now
ones.
that I have your attention.
Yeah, one of his best ones is the claim that medieval frilly knickers led to the invention of the computer. And I'm not even going to explain that, because if you've not seen the episode in the series, that alone I think is worth investigating to see how on earth he makes that connection. Because it's one of those things you actually sort of try and plot the course of these, where he's going with some of these theories, and you see where he starts and where he finishes, and even when you've watched it even once or twice, you still can't quite remember how he got there, can you?
Yeah.
So I think that's why the book's quite important, because you can sort of follow it through at your own pace. But I think it's another series that I don't think the DVDs probably sold that well.
No, which
is a shame.
Yeah.
Because, if we can spread the word a bit and encourage people to have a look at it, if you've got an interest in history or science or things like that, it's a real it's a really well presented series, isn't it? As you said, it's engaging. It's very watchable.
I think people fear that it was made in the 70s, so therefore it's going to date really badly. It doesn't. It doesn't, because it's not that kind of program. Just the clothes he's wearing, perhaps. But
and some of the technology.
Of the technology, and the dodgy Raymond Cusick fires.
Yeah.
Other than that, nothing really needs to be focused as far as the 70s, does it?
No. Okay. Well, thank you for that. That's But yeah, we
really enjoyed viewing that one. Again.
Yeah, we'd certainly say have a look at Connections and investigate it, and I'm sure the DVDs aren't that expensive, are they?
And let us know what you think.
Yeah,
I really would like to know on this one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be back soon with some more stuff. See you soon then. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And thank you to Warren
Yes,
for
thank you, Warren.
helping us with that.
Yes, very interesting.
We've got more Warren coming up now.
More
Warren.
Warren goodness.
More Warren goodness. Is he goodness? Oh, Rose is playing with her ball.
Rose has got a ball.
I can hear it tingling in the background.
That's the noise you can hear, yes.
Warren has a chat with Michael Seeley about Kit Pedler and Doomwatch now.
Yes.
Warren did actually go on location.
He did
to do this.
Yes, he was.
There's a bit of noise in the background as they were filming in a sort of public place.
Yeah.
So we've selected a chunk which I think makes sense in itself and doesn't. It's a bit noisy at the start, but it soon settles down.
Yeah.
So bear with it, and then we'll be back with some more stuff after that.
Yes.
See you.
Bye.
And now, from Norwich.
What was that? How do I
How did you get involved in doing the stuff for Doomwatch to Hawk?
Oh, it's easy. Over the years, there were plenty of attempts at doing a Doomwatch website, you know. Now, I was not the only one who used to watch what exists of Doomwatch and really wanted to know what happened to all the missing episodes, you know. And there was some guy who'd put the storylines for the missing first series episodes out on very primitive early internet in 1999. And that was good. But other people tried to set up websites, and the one I can think of is the updates were about updates. I've updated the updates on my site today, and I've changed a banner and this bit. There's no content. And I'm sort of screaming, come on, I want to read about missing episodes. My sense of entitlement demanded to know what happened in Higher Mountain and what was Without the Bomb all about. How exciting is a lipstick aphrodisiac going to be? All those sort of things. It's a big mystery. I wanted to know what Spectre at the Feast about. It's all about the Radio Times write-ups are bloody awful. It's like this week Doomwatch catches a plane. Yeah, great. Tell us it's going to crash later on or something like that. So it does a bit more exciting, but that's the BBC then, wasn't it? So then I discovered Scott Burdick's site. And he had this thing that always gets my love, detail.
Yeah.
The devil in the detail. Nothing was too trivial. Nothing was beyond him. And what's more, he got a copy of some of the missing episode scripts. But I'm too shy to sort of email and say, can I help? Or will you be my friend? Or... And then I found out he'd gone to the BBC archives as well. I thought, now this guy, he likes Doomwatch almost as much as I do. And I was getting the impression that Doomwatch was becoming very forgotten and very unloved. People were watching the old episode and going, this is rubbish. Which is rather sad, I thought. Because in the 90s, when I was starting to watch them on pirate video, really bad quality copies, I lent to my friends in the local group, they loved it. Absolutely loved it. Matt West can't understand that. He can't understand why people like Doomwatch. Crossroads of Clipboards, he once described it as. He thought I would be upset by that, but I thought that was quite funny. But mind you, Survivors is like Crossroads with silage, isn't it? I like Survivors. The acting's very wooden, but then again, they had no rehearsal time. Those actors who needed rehearsals, dear, and they didn't have it. So anyway, so one day I was reading a bit of he'd done the storyline for one missing episode or something, and something clicked in my head about how Doomwatch worked as a piece of drama. And so he had a little forum with about 3 or 4 people on it, and mainly his updates. He kept his copies on it, and I just put a little piece in, which was bait. A nice, well-reasoned, argued argument. It was bait. And he took it, hook, line and sinker, bless him. Next day he said, get in touch. And I got in touch. And he said, would you like to help? Would you like to... he said what he needed was storylines, detailed storylines, and what he called meaty reviews. I thought, I had nothing else to do. I had nothing else to do in my life. You know, well, apart from marriage, but no, that's a waste of time, that was. It was more. I was more excited when I got the missing episodes through my scripts. That is through my email box, and there's like survival code. I go, happiest day of my life. Suck the children. Getting copies of Flood. That was more exciting than bloody. Look, Daddy, I can walk. Yeah. You're gonna fall over in a minute. It's also bloody wonderful about that. I can walk all the time. But look, this is Without the Bomb. It's dreadful. It's a crap episode. It's the worst Doomwatch, but I'm reading it. You can't read it. It's like that, isn't it? Yeah. It wasn't quite like that. That's how I felt. I really did, And Killer Dolphins, at last, I suddenly discovered what happened to the Killer Dolphins, So I was doing this, so for Scott, I was doing detailed storylines, which weren't, oh dear, it must be really awful now. And, but the thing I liked was trying to discover the ideas and the history of the episodes, because each episode had some basis in reality. So it was digging all that up. That was lovely. I spent a year helping him out, and there's other people as well. Other people were getting involved. I can't remember their names now. There's people like going into the BFI in London and digging out the programmers' broadcast sheets to discover the validity of the stock music tracks. So it was going through doing a year's worth of website on Doomwatch, going through old newspaper archives online, anything Doomwatch or Kit Pedler. Scott's in there, he does it all. Suddenly realised that Kit Pedler was doing some very interesting things with his life, like the 1977, I think, Sizewell inquiry about whether they should build another reactor up there. He was up there giving evidence for about 30 seconds before was dismissed, but I thought, I never knew that. And I discovered he was a very major anti-vivisectionist, and he was like with committees and all sorts of things trying to steer the. He wasn't a member of the RSPCA, but trying to steer the RSPCA.
That's right. He got legislation. I've just finished that.
That's one of my favourite chapters in the book, because it all comes together quite nicely. I was very proud of that. I didn't know that, and yet all I read about Kit Pedler was he's the scientific advisor to Doctor Who. No, he wasn't. He was science fiction advisor. He wasn't scientific advisor. He was there to bring in science fiction ideas rather than fantasy ideas and historical ideas. He was there to sort of. All the writers, they wrote for United or Dr. Finley's Case book. They didn't really know science fiction, or perhaps hadn't written much of it. So there might be one or two writers who love it, but Kit Pedler was a guy who loved it. Now, he wasn't a writer, but he was there to give ideas, hence the War Machines. And then he said, I want to write a script, which is amazing. He actually said yes, an untested writer. And all people do is, Moonbase Part 4, puncture the dome, so much for the scientific advisor. He was a biologist. And what's more, I bet you they were thinking, we must have a depressurisation scene. Unfortunately, the set design makes it just looks like it's so, like there's just like a bit of perspex between the moon and them. And yeah, of course, it probably would be instant depressurisation. I don't know how it would work, Frank, but they obviously just wanted a good depressurisation scene. That's what they thought. Didn't think, 50 years' time, people were going to sort of be laughing at him. And the things Kit Pedler did, and then he sort of just pointed at that. And you think,
you only have to look at what we've got now. Ecological hubs, solar power, wind farms.
Yeah.
How would he react to that now?
He'd be over the moon.
Yeah. Because he wasn't a tub thumper, as you put it in your book. He's not a tub thumper. He's a quiet approach. It's very much the education approach, and through Doomwatch, he's used that as a footstep, hasn't he?
Yeah. Except it didn't start off to be an ecological program. It was all about the responsibility of a scientist, and just push the ideas science fiction-wise. So you got a plastic-eating bug. So great, let's have a plastic-eating bug go through London. Yeah. Rather than the third series, it's all like, let's talk about what might happen. In the first season, they showed, not tell. In the third season, it's all like, well, like that. Then did a couple of episodes where it was actually anything approaching excitement, really. But anyway, going back to... So I was doing that for a year, helping out Scott, and I suddenly realised Kit Pedler's life was so damn interesting. And I was getting so fed up. Like Wikipedia, look at his Wikipedia page. I don't know if it's been updated.
It's about that much there, isn't it?
And someone in the section of Wikipedia that says debate or discussion, saying, how about something about his academic career? And the guy who was doing the page said, I don't know much about that. Well, you can if you Googled a bit, because you can find most of his papers online, most of them. Or if not, you can certainly find the titles of them. But it took me a long time to get the complete list of his stuff. There's no one place where you can get everything. There's all sorts. It was so much cross-referencing to do. If you Google his Kit Pedler, you're not going to find his medical papers. Dr. C.M.H. Pedler or C. Pedler and F, whatever his initials were afterwards. Then you might start to find more things. But he's such an amazing man. So anyway, I suddenly thought, damn it, I want to write his life.
And thank you to Michael and to Warren.
Thank you, chaps.
Yes, interesting chat as always.
Yes.
We have now even more of Warren.
Yes, we can't keep him away this time.
It's a bumper Warren issue.
Bumper Warren issue. More Warren for your money.
Yes. As we...
Not that you paid money.
No. As we chat about our own personal connections, how we met.
How we all met, yes.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Hello.
Hello.
How did you know I was going to say that then, Warren?
Well,
you read
must have a connection.
We must have a connection. Yes, indeed, because we are going to do now a piece about our own personal connections. How we came to be sitting on this sofa, because we are sitting on a sofa.
Mm-hmm.
And
My legs got me, yeah.
and what random things have led us to this strange position we're currently in?
Have you got random things, Lisa?
Oh, I expect so, yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Now, Warren and I think, go back furthest, don't we?
We do indeed. 85? 84?
It's quite hard for me to remember, but I think,
You being the eldest.
yes, being old and slow, but we must have met on the school bus.
We were, because there wasn't any room and you sat next to me.
Oh dear, I sat on your lap.
You did sit on my lap, yes. Yes. That's why I've never walked properly the same since.
Although I was a raving Doctor Who fan at school, I wasn't out with it. I wasn't out of the closet, really.
No, we weren't outed as Who fans at all. I wasn't outed as a Who fan, no.
At middle school, I was very much... There was a sort of group of people that liked Doctor Who and talked about it.
Right.
But this would have been when I was in the first year of the sixth form, if we're talking 1985.
85, I'd have been 15 then.
So this is after the cancellation, do you reckon? Because the cancellation was February 1985.
Yes, you're right, yep.
And I remember listening to Sonic Waves episode issue 4,
yep.
which was Alan Hayes' wonderful tape zine.
Yeah.
On, I think you had did you have a mini cassette recorder thing?
Headphone
with headphones?
Thing. Yes, Walkman type
yes.
thing.
So how did we end up in that position? Did you talk to me about Doctor Who or what?
It was because I think one of us was looking at the monthly.
All right.
No,
okay.
You were looking. I remember now. You were looking at the monthly, and
right.
I made a comment about the Doctor, Ian, Barbara, and Susan.
Right.
And we haven't stopped talking about it since.
Oh, blimey! Well, I can't
have.
quite remember that because I definitely remember listening to Sonic Waves with you on the bus.
Yeah.
Because we were amazed that audio existed from episode 2 of the Dalek Master Plan, wasn't it? Cause
yes. Indeed, we do.
Yes, and we never thought we'd actually get to see that because the episode was missing at the time. But that Sonic Waves, I think, I'd ordered through an advert in Celestial Toy Room, which was the Doctor Who Appreciation Society newsletter. I'd joined the DWAS in spring of 1984, so I'd been a DWAS member for a sort of year and a bit. And were you making strange signs there, one? But I loved the idea that you could send off for a tape and hear people talking about Doctor Who.
Yeah. Strange concept.
Yeah, the idea that you would listen to other people talking about television is a very weird thing.
And the fact that people seem to like the same things.
But that, I think, sort of spurred us on because we did a tape of Genesis of the Wogans.
Yes.
Didn't it? We rewrote Genesis of the Daleks.
And
recorded it on your hi-fi thing at your house.
That's right, with the bizarrest soundtrack in the background, usually the Wurzels or...
Yeah, because we had the Doctor Who sound effects record.
Yes.
And then was it after that we joined the Salisbury local group?
No, because we did Wogans for the Salisbury local group.
Was it for that?
Yeah,
I couldn't remember
specifically
which
for
order it
that.
was.
Yeah, because we said to Andrew Wink, the coordinator.
Yeah.
Because he was asking for things for the SFOW Express.
Oh, of course, yes, of course. And we said, we could do a play.
We can do a play.
Yeah.
And it ended up being a 6-part.
I think it was 5.
Was it 5?
Yes, it was 5 somehow.
And the regeneration at the end.
Yeah,
it?
you were the Doctor.
Yeah.
I was Davros and Sarah.
Yes, Sarah. Yes.
when I could do the voice,
yes.
Sometimes I had a sore throat.
You had a sore throat, and you couldn't do Sarah. Yes.
But by that point, I was sort of getting a few more tape zines as well, like Unit Tape Zine as well, and the Master Tape as well.
The Master Tape, yes, I forgot about that one.
That was, I think, the West Kent local group did that. Yeah. Then we got talking to sort of Nick Goodman.
Yeah.
And Nick sort of wrote his own stories and things like that. But then in the must have been 1989. He did Ray Fay's Shift, which was his tape scene.
Tape scene, yeah.
And that ran till the mid-90s. And I Now you sort of you did a little bit for it, didn't
I
you,
did
Warren?
one or two episodes,
Yeah.
one or two editions. Yeah.
Yeah, but I did I did
think 'cause
something
I
for
moved out- I
but
moved
then
out
you
the area.
moved
Yeah.
moved out of the area.
Which
So
is smoke.
yes, so we sort of lost contact a bit. But I then wrote a piece for issue 6, which was the Graham Williams special. And I did a piece on Sapphire and Steel, story 5, I think. And I was still a member of the DWAS, and you could send the tapes in for free. Well, not for free. You'd send them a free tape, and they'd review it, which basically gave you a bit of free publicity. And you, Lisa,
Yes.
come into the story at that point,
I
don't
do,
you?
yes, because I joined the DWAS either that year, 1991, or the year before, after Doctor Who finished. I'm always late to the party with these things. And I think I must have joined in 1991 because I have a feeling that was one of the first CTs I got with that in, and it had this review of Ray First Shift, and it was a really good review.
Yeah.
They were, glowing.
Yeah, well,
about it.
I think it was,
and it was a good issue.
It was probably the best issue we did up to that point. As with all these things, as you go along, you learn more as you go along, and I think issue 6 was a pretty good one.
So so I sent away from it,
which is why I sent it in, because I thought, well, this is actually worth sending in. It was good.
So I sent away for it from Nick and liked it. So I think I then got all the back issues and carried on ordering it. And during this, I got to actually know Nick a bit better because we started writing to each other properly.
Because Nick had a book
He had
where
a
he wrote
book
everybody's name
with all
in.
these people that had ordered it.
Yeah.
And under my,
I did that for Spectrum, I think, as well. Yeah.
Slightly amused when I saw my entry because it said, because I didn't put my name, I just put my initial, and it said, "Oh, an Essex girl." And he seemed to be rather excited by this. I don't quite know why. He's obviously never met an Essex girl before. But anyway, we got talking to each other, and in I think it was 1992, you were preparing to do Sutton Park Prison in the Sun, which was
Sutton Park Prison in the Sun was a film that Nick and Paul co-wrote.
Yes,
I think it was 93.
It might have been 93.
And we filmed it in the middle of summer on Pepper. And you got invited to be in it.
He got invited to be in it because somebody dropped out.
Yeah.
But I think I'd got to know him before that because I was
going to say, Elaine and Keith were in that. Yeah. Did you know either of them?
I'd met them at Comic Mart, so I'd obviously known them before that.
Yeah.
So I might have got to meet them 91, 92.
Yeah.
I remember getting warned to be careful of strange men, but I didn't take any notice. So.
But Paul, you and Paul had lots of scenes together because you were married, weren't you?
We were, yes. Yeah.
And you had to pretend to drive my car.
Yes.
Which was quite difficult to film sometimes.
All it was basically I would sit in it when it wasn't moving and sit in the driving seat and look like I was preparing to.
But you never actually did,
no. And then it would cut to you driving with somebody, with Nick or Paul filming it from the passenger seat. So it was quite cleverly done. So you just never actually showed me driving it.
But then you kept on getting invited back to do other films, didn't you?
Yes, I became part of the gang.
You did ones that I wasn't even in.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't even remember what they are now, but yes.
Yeah, you did quite a lot. And then you did Sutton Park with Paul as well.
Well, everybody did Sutton Park with Paul.
Yeah. And that's how we sort of met, really, wasn't it? And then you invited me to go to a Panopticon, wasn't it? That's the first convention we went to.
Yeah. It was
97.
Was it Battlefield?
No, I think it was Panopticon.
Was it Panopticon in Coventry?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's when we had the automatic voice, wasn't it?
Yeah, Battlefield and Panopticon were both in Coventry.
Right,
yeah.
But we had we stayed in a bed and breakfast and got woken up at 2:00 in the morning by what seemed to be the voice of God. And
security
it was a
alarm.
security system.
But round about late 90s, we sort of got back in touch, didn't we, Warren?
Yes. Because I was going through my head then when we did. Yes.
And I contacted you on the website Friends Reunited.
Yes.
And frankly, you were one of the few friends I wanted to be reunited with.
That's very kind. Well, you were on the blacklist.
Oh, right. Okay, fair enough.
No.
But
no, joking.
But I was round your house, wasn't I, Lisa?
Yes, and Warren came to visit
parents.
us.
And
not,
Warren
not
came
with my
That's
parents.
right, yeah.
My parents were there.
You came to visit.
I did, yes.
You met the dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
The jumpy dog.
Gosh. Wow, that
you're
is
just
far
remembering
away,
that. Yeah. And then we sort of slowly, because you've moved around a bit, haven't you?
I've been around a bit.
You've been around. You've stayed in lots of places, but
they've never caught me.
No. But we just sort of realised that we just like doing these sort of audio things. I think because clearly we natter.
Yes.
But
just a reflection of what we normally do, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think we enjoy nattering about nonsense, to each other, and occasionally people seem to like listening to it. I don't know why, but there we go. But yeah, it's interesting the way that me joining the DWAS was one of those pivotal things. You sitting next to me on the bus,
was sitting next to him on the bus,
or whichever way around it was another pivotal thing. And both of those, because I didn't know you when I joined the DWAS, because that would have been 84. I didn't know you then.
I'd have been at QE for 2 years.
Yeah,
then,
but then I realised that you lived just a couple of miles away from me.
Yeah,
it's very very weird. So yeah, there's the sort of random rolls of the dice, isn't it? That has led to us doing this silly podcast. So there we go. That's our connections. Bye.
Bye.
And now we present our tribute to Brian Cant.
Yes, the lovely, wonderful Brian Cant.
We'll be talking about his work, and then later on we'll be focusing on one of my favourite things that he did.
Yes.
So here's our tribute to Brian.
Comedy and music are provided now on 2 in the fast-moving entertainment led by Brian Cant in Play Away.
Hello! I want to challenge you, all of you, to place one hand on any part of your person where the other hand cannot reach it, all right? 5 seconds to do that, to achieve this feat, or rather hand. 5 seconds to put one hand where the other one on your own person, not somebody else. All right, ready, go! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stop! Anybody that? Yes! I think they all know it. Well, some didn't. I wonder if you did at home.
Hello.
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 Oh dear. That was very sultry, Warren.
Thank you very much.
Oh, good. Put your clothes on. Right. Excuse me. We are now going to remember Brian Cant.
Yes.
I think
the lovely Brian Cant.
Yeah.
Now,
part of all our childhoods.
Yes. Brian Cant passed away a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, towards the end of June,
isn't it? But it's very obvious how much he meant to everyone.
Yes.
I think from all the response on
Everybody was
Twitter and
very
Facebook,
upset.
Because sort of most of our sort of Facebook friends and real friends and everything else are all of pretty much an era that remember Brian Cant on Play School and Play Away. We've just watched a few bits and bobs of Brian.
Yes.
And it's noticeable, I think, how invested he is.
He loves
in the
job,
show.
It's not a job, actually. It's
it's something he really
he's
loves.
really enjoying himself
doing.
Yeah.
And because for comparison, we watched. There was a New Zealand version of Play School.
Yeah.
And I don't know who the guy doing it was.
Mr. Mullet.
Well,
but he was sort of just basically phoning his performance
going through the motions, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas then we've contrasted it with Brian,
and he's giving it his all,
and he really is giving it, as you say, his all. And I think as a kid,
you could see that
you appreciated that, and you knew that
it's that warm hug from the telly from Brian, wasn't it?
Because he was very much one of those presenters that was your either your friend or your uncle, wasn't he?
Yeah. You identified with him.
Yes.
And it's quite interesting. You can draw a timeline through your entire childhood to say, Brian, when I first met Brian, he was doing Play School.
Yeah.
Now I remember Play Away. Then I remember Dapple Down Farm.
Yeah.
And I remember this and I remember that. And he's constant. It's a relative, isn't it? It's one of the closest relatives you'll have on screen.
Well, I think as we started to look through his sort of credits, it was remarkable the sort of range of stuff he's done.
Mm.
I mean, yes, as Doctor Who fans, we know him from the Dominators and Dalek Master Plan.
Yes.
Well, the clip that survives from
Survives
episode
from
1.
Yeah.
And yes, Trumpton, Camberwick Green, and Chigley, which
staples of any child's,
which we are going to do at the end of this podcast. But there's a lot of one-off appearances. Oddly, as sort of quite a few police roles.
Yes.
Strangely,
He obviously looks like a policeman.
Yeah.
He pops up in Bootsy and Snudge as a police constable, detective sergeant in No Hiding Place,
Right.
and also in Detective.
He did Z-Cars, didn't he?
Yes, there's a few Z-Cars appearances. Girl in a Black Bikini, Detective Constable Ashwood, that's from 1967. Sexton Blake, Police Constable.
Grief.
Dixon of Dock Green, that's a couple of appearances around about 1966, 68 and 69. Z-Cars, he's a doctor in one episode in 1967 and pops up in a two-parter in 1970. But you said about Dappledown Farm. I don't know that series at all. Can you remind me what that was? He was a farmer in that. Or
Yeah, I
something,
can't
wasn't
remember much about it. I can remember the title. I can't actually remember much more about
Did he
it.
talk to the horse?
I think he might have.
Didn't the
Yeah.
animals talk?
he?
Yeah.
All right.
It was puppetry, wasn't it?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
Starring Brian Cant and a series of puppets: Fiona the Frog, Harry the Heron, Dapple the Horse, Mabel the Cow, Stubble and Straw the two mice.
But that's the thing. He's always there, isn't he?
Yeah.
Somewhere.
He's always on the screen.
Yeah, he's always on the screen, and he's always making you smile and feel warm.
Yes.
And he does pop up as narrator for the Organ Gang in This Morning with Richard Not Judy, which is a very
Brilliant.
strange cartoon series that Lee and Herring did
Yes.
in 1997 as part of their show, where he's playing the narrator, and it's clearly based on Lee and Herring's fond memories of watching him in Trumpton, Camberwick Green and Chigley.
Yeah.
There might be a slight sort of taking the pee a bit by getting Brian Cant, but
A beautiful homage, I would
but
say.
equally, I think Brian's aware of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
That he knows he's playing on his sort of
Own
reputation.
image, yeah.
And he plays it so straight, doesn't he? Yeah.
There's a wonderful outtake of him just laughing and going, "Was that all right?" But yeah, I mean, he pops up in Casualty and Doctors even. His last appearance in Doctors is 2011. So, you know, it's we might just think of him as Play Away, Play School and Trumpton, what have you.
But he was a working actor.
But there's so much
portfolio.
There's so much more than that. I mean, he also appeared as IMDb lists quite a few appearances as himself.
Yes.
Number 73, Crackerjack, On Safari, Give Us a Clue,
Crackerjack.
Record Breakers, Eurovision Song Contest. He was the UK
Really?
vote presenter. 1970, 1969. Host for It's a Knockout in 1982 from Sherborne.
From Sherborne.
For Jeux Sans Frontières, actually.
Yeah.
Yes, we said about Sherborne meeting Valerie Singleton, but yes, when Eddie Waring retires, Brian turns up, which is lovely. I have not seen any of his. I can't remember him doing the Great Egg Race, but that's 1979. But let's just briefly talk about one of the clips that we saw earlier, which was the Hunt for Black Jack from Play Away. And I think it's a lovely sort of 3 or 4 minute film piece.
Yes.
Where he's sort of doing his best Jimmy Stewart impression.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Which isn't terribly good, but he gives it a go.
Gordon Gostelow.
Well, I was going to say Gordon Gostelow does a Jimmy Stewart impression.
Just generally.
Most of the time. Brian, I think, ramps it up a bit. But it's interesting that's filmed at the Black Gang Chine on the Isle of Wight, where they've got a sort of Western sort of mock sort of town, haven't they? With and you said you've been there a few times, Warren, to see.
Yes, I used to live on the island.
Yeah, so you know that. But weirdly, the computer program also visits that same location. Ian McNaught Davis goes and visits the telegraph operator, and there's a voiceover by, I think, David Graham. I'll have to show you that later. But yes, Alan Rushton, who was the sort of drummer on Play Away, has got a few clips on YouTube. If you just search for Alan Rushton drums, and he clearly had a very early video recorder. The quality's not brilliant, but again, quite a bit of this kids' TV stuff does suffer from missing.
Yeah, it doesn't.
missing
Well, I don't
episodes.
suppose they thought it was important to keep.
I don't really know sort of Play Away's survival.
I'm guessing it's not good.
Need to go through that.
Not the type of thing that you would export, is it?
But
no.
There's a section, questions and answers, and end credits. Play Away, which is about a 3 or 4 minute segment that Alan Rushton's recorded, and that's the bit that we chose to flag up when Brian's death was announced, because there's a little bit with him and Tony Arthur on film, and they at the end they've made their names out of sort of flowers and grass. Just made all the letters, and I just took that picture and put it up because I thought it was lovely. The final shot is a helicopter shot of the White Horse at Uffington in Oxford, which didn't we say that Pete and Dud also filmed there for not only but also, and did a similar sort of pullback shot showing it. Yeah. But yeah, it was just that looking back at Brian's stuff, we forget how important he was, because what was the other song he was doing? Underneath the Spreading Chestnut Tree. Yeah. Doing all the actions.
We were all smiling.
Yeah.
We were just all smiling.
Yeah, just sat there watching it, and it was just lovely to see him do this. So these clips just bring back, I think, so many fond memories. I mean, Play School had loads and loads of presenters. But what was it you said, Warren, that Jonathan Cohen had said about how they were
I think it was
employed?
Last words on just after Brian's death. Radio 4 do a programme, and they usually get people who know famous people to come in and comment. Jonathan Cohen was on there, and they said, we used to go on every week, and we didn't know whether we were going to be employed the following week. It's literally how Play Away worked.
All right.
And they would go in, and they would work their socks off really hard because they wanted to work for the next week. But he said Brian used to come in and wing it. Yeah. He was such a natural. He would go in and go, yeah, okay. And as you were saying about his audition piece.
Oh, yeah, he was fishing in a cardboard box, and he had to catch a Wellington boot full of custard or something. But yeah, according to sort of the notes here on Wikipedia, Brian first appeared in May 1964 and stayed with it for 21 years.
So which shows how popular he was.
Yeah. I mean, yes, if you look at the list of people, there's Eric Thompson, Carol Chell, Derek Griffiths, Tony Arthur, Florella Benjamin, Chris Chanchell, Johnny Ball.
You're walking through the inside of my head.
Stuart McGugan.
Jeremy Irons did a bit, didn't
Jeremy Irons is Play Away. Yeah.
And Tony
Robinson as well.
Where are they now? I mean,
they didn't go on to anything, did they? But yeah, I think we just have to stop and thank Brian for being part of our childhoods.
Yeah, and just making such a difference.
Yeah.
He never played down. He never cheapened it.
No, he always gave you, as the audience at home, everything, didn't he?
And he never did. This is just for children.
No,
he never did. No. He played for the entire audience. Even if the parents were sat with the younger children, they would still be engaged with it.
Yeah. And he didn't do an Adrian Headley and be patronising.
Little bit of controversy there.
My name's Lisa Parker. Good night. But so thank you, Brian.
Yes, thank you very much.
We salute you.
Yeah, and we're now going to more detail of Camberwick Green, Trumpton, and Chigley, because I really want to talk about them. So we'll be back very shortly.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Strolling up the street,
Hello, it's me, Paul, or Shayeti. I wanted to tell you about something that is sort of related to either, well, Play School or the show Play Away, which was the spin-off. When I was very young, I don't have that many memories of my very early childhood, but I do remember that when I was very young, whenever I had dreams, they always seemed to star the cast of either Play School or Play Away. I could well be Play Away, because I think I remember enjoying that more than Play School. But yeah, it was weird. The only reason I can think that would have happened is that, when you're very small, your social spectrum is very, very limited to maybe a few relatives, or particularly before you go to like Play School or primary school. You really don't know that many people. I was an only child until I was 8.5, so I didn't know that many other children to start with. And adults-wise, I knew my parents, and I had the odd relative, but I suppose the faces that I saw most were the ones on television. And yeah, I can't remember any particular dream or what happened, but I do remember that a lot of the faces that appeared were related to Play School or Play Away. So I guess as I grew older, I met more people, and that stopped happening. But I definitely remember it being a thing. My favourite Play School presenter was always Chloe Ashcroft, because again, she looked very similar to how my mum looked in the sort of 70s. She had the same sort of hair, and so I think when I saw Chloe Ashcroft, I kind of felt safe, because she looked like my mum. So when she was in Doctor Who and Resurrection of the Daleks, even though by then I was like 10 or 11, I remember being very pleased that Chloe Ashcroft had made an appearance in my favourite TV programme, even though she had a bit of an unfortunate end, and possibly acting-wise she was slightly still channeling her Play School acting days, but I still love the fact she was in that story. That's all I've got to say. Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
And thank you to Paul for that.
Thank you, Paul. That was a very nice
piece.
Memory.
Yes. And also thank you to Warren for helping with our Brian Cant bits and pieces. But now I think one of the things for which Brian Cant is most known, certainly for people of my generation.
Mm-hmm. People.
Old people? What do you mean? Thank you. You're not much younger than me.
I know.
Camberwick Green, Trumpton, Chigley.
Yes.
Which I am very fond of.
Yes.
I've got all the episodes on DVD, and we just got the Blu-ray of Camberwick Green, because it's recent. Well, I say it's recently. Well, recently-ish. BBC post-production have had a go at it to clean it up,
make it feel a bit nicer.
Yes, but let's talk about this lovely universe.
It's all interconnected, isn't it?
Yes. It's 3 separate series, all written and produced by Gordon Murray and animated by Burrow and Hardwick. Puppet series, launched in 1966, Camberwick Green.
That's older than you.
Some things are. Launched in 1966, 3rd of January. Mm-hmm. So Doctor Who on the Saturday before was Volcano.
All right.
Yeah. But 3rd of January is a Monday. Mm-hmm. 1:30 in the afternoon, Watch with Mother for the very young, Camberwick Green, Peter the Postman. Narrator, Brian Cant. Music by Freddie Phillips.
Mm-hmm.
The cover for Radio Times for this week is Softly Softly.
Oh, right. Okay.
As Softly Softly launches a couple of days later on the 5th of January.
Okay.
So 2 very important series launching
in the same week.
Launching that week. But it wasn't the first thing that Gordon Murray had produced, because he did make a Rubovian Legend in 1958, which we've had a very quick look at, and we're scared by, because
very ugly puppets.
Yes, real sort of nightmarish puppets in that.
Have a look if you want to, but it's at your own peril.
But yes, Gordon Murray's work on Camberwick Green, Trumpton and Chigley are his masterwork, I think, really. Yeah. I was just sort of looking up Gordon Murray, and he actually saw action in the D-Day landing on Gold Beach, which I can't sort of imagine.
You can't.
I can't sort of connect
No.
Trumpton and that. No. But it's 3 series of 13 episodes each.
Yeah.
They run about sort of 15 minutes. Camberwick Green is 1966, Trumpton is 1967, and then Chigley is, I think, 1969. That's right, yes. Yeah. So there is a gap. But they all form a sort of coherent fictional universe.
Yes, Trumptonshire.
Trumptonshire is
Trumpton's the
Trumpton's
county town.
The county town,
like
basically, yes. So people sort of get them mixed up in their heads and it all sort of merges into one, really. But yeah, I remember watching it as a kid and loving it, and I still love it now, because it's one of those series where you can tell the makers are giving it their all.
Yes.
From Gordon's work on all the scripts and making it a universe that sort of fits together. Because people remember the Fire Brigade, but they don't turn up till Trumpton.
No.
So they're actually not in the first series. In the first series, you've got the boys at Pippin Fort, and they're sort of the people that, much like the Fire Brigade later, when anything goes wrong. Yeah. So there's some bees nesting outside the bakery. Yeah. Immediate thing is to send for the army. Yeah.
Slight overreaction.
Yeah, the mayor's lost his hat. You send for the fire brigade. Yeah. PC McGarry is the village bobby, and there is a line in one, because every character's got a song, which Brian Cant sings with brilliant music
by
from Freddie Phillips. Real memorable stuff. There is a chap on YouTube. His channel's called Somebody Irrelevant, which is I think doing himself down, who does lovely guitar audio, not audio, but clean versions of the music without the songs, and you can see what beautiful pieces of music. In fact, they're quite simple pieces of music, but they really get in your head.
Yes.
And I've got lots of favourites. Everybody probably knows the Steam Train song. Time flies by when I'm a driver of a train. Yes. Later, I think, was it the group Half Man, Half Biscuit did a version of it. Yeah. But the animation, it sort of became a style of its own, because Windy Miller, the character, gets used in adverts for bakeries and things like that in later years. There's the was it Radiohead video from last year, which is done in the same style. Yeah. Is it Ashes to Ashes or Life on Mars?
Life
I've never
Mars.
Does
Mars,
a parody where you've got Sam Tyler
coming out
of the musical box, because the opening of Camberwick Green starts with the music box, and whichever character it is comes out and waves at you. Episode 1 is Peter the Postman, and I think that's quite a clever first episode, because he goes on his rounds delivering letters. So you structurally it's quite clever. You get to meet other characters in the series. But you said, looking at the boys at Pippin Fort, you started to notice something a bit odd about the whole universe, didn't you?
The historical period where everybody is set. Now, when you look at it, you think, it's probably sort of Victorian, because the ladies wear long dresses.
You see, I never
apart
thought,
from Mrs. Murphy.
I never thought that.
Yeah.
Watching it as a kid, it was modern day to me.
Right.
But you've noticed all this costume detail.
Yeah. I mean, particularly the boys at Pippin Ford, who, looking at, because this is how nerdy we are, looking at
uniforms.
pictures of red coat uniforms,
Yeah.
the uniform they wear
Yeah.
is from about 1835 because it's got the double white cross.
Yeah, they're privates.
Yeah,
They've
they're
got red
privates,
coats with the white, two white sashes on
Sashes
it.
on it that do the double cross.
Black hats.
Yes. But the hat's from.
Yeah, they've got white wigs.
Yes,
with
which is
black
sort of
ribbons.
Georgian,
sort of ponytail thing, isn't it?
George III, sort of late 18th century, and the hats are sort of early 19th century. So it's sort of historically, it's all
this
over the
never
place.
crossed my mind watching it, but the moment you said, I thought, hang on, you're right, because they would just have modern
sort of
uniforms on, wouldn't they? You know, it would be like Red Cap or something like that. But I guess visually,
it looks better.
That's not very interesting if it was a modern uniform.
I can understand it, but it's yeah. I mean, it's not only that. It's like when you go to all the different characters. You've got Mrs. Honeyman, who's wearing what appears to be a sort of an Edwardian style dress with a hat.
A lot of the women have got sort of hooped skirts on, haven't
so
they?
You can't see
well,
the
I know why, because it's easier to animate.
But apart from Mrs. Murphy,
Mrs. Murphy's got legs.
Who's like got a really short skirt on compared to everybody else.
But when you go to Mr. Crockett's garage, there's a red sports car you sometimes see, which I think belongs to the salesman, Mr. Dagenham.
Mr. Dagenham, yeah.
But Dr. Mop's got
like,
a vintage car.
He's got like Bessie.
Well, the car registration number is 1901. I don't know whether that's a valid registration number or not. But clearly he wears a top hat as well.
Hat, yeah.
He's quite out of time, isn't he? So he does look like he's he's fallen in from 100 years ago or something.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird that. And what else was there?
There's also like all the firemen's helmets are quite old.
Oh, they've got the brass.
They've got the brass
metal
plates
helmets,
on it, which you get in the Dad's Army episode.
I was going to say the Dad's Army episode. They're wearing something
fire
similar.
Engine.
Yeah, so maybe there's a weird time thing going on, sort of sapphire and steel thing, isn't it?
But I can sort of see where it's coming from because, as somebody, I think it was Warren said, it's sort of it's an
idealised,
British village.
Yes,
so it's sort of like Poundbury.
Oh, Poundbury being you better
Prince
explain
Charles's,
what Poundbury is.
Man-made village.
Man-made.
We know it is man-made. It's not designed village. Yeah, but it's a man-made village.
Yeah, so
so it's Poundbury is what in Prince Charles's head is what
a perfect village.
Perfect village. Apart from the fact that
mind you do get some dodgy sorts turning up in Poundbury from time to time.
Yeah.
We might get back to that in the future.
Yes,
I'll just
you
leave
never
that one open. But I found the Radio Times entry for Camberwick Green because there was a little piece actually done. It says a new Watch with Mother story with a host of new characters begins today. Camberwick Green is deep in the heart of Never Neverland, but before long its puppet people will be as familiar to children who watch with Mother as their own neighbours. Among them are Peter the Postman, Dr. Mop, Mickey Murphy the Baker, Mr. Carraway the Fishmonger, Mrs. Dingle the Postmistress, and the Chemist's Wife and Village Gossip, Mrs. Honeyman, who talks and talks and talks.
Carries her baby everywhere. Well, she doesn't. She carries her baby, but she just offloads it to everybody. Hold the baby.
Whilst I natter about something. The rubber and plastic puppet, 6 inches tall, are wire jointed. If Dr. Mop raises his arm, it is done by moving the arm a fraction of an inch, shooting a single frame with the film camera, then moving the arm another fraction, and so on. So there's a nice little in-depth piece. There's a drawing of Peter the Postman and his pillar box and his sack on top of the music box, which is quite nice. If you want to go into real detail for Trumptonshire, and sadly we are running out of time on this issue, so I can't go into as much nerdery as I'd like, because this is one of my absolute essential series. There is a great unofficial website, www.t-web.co.uk/trumpgo.htm, which has got loads of real stuff. It lists all the episodes, it lists all the songs, all the characters. It's got stuff on Freddie Phillips, Gordon Murray, Brian Cant. For example, I'll just quote this briefly. There's an interview with Freddie Phillips about the music and effects tracks. And he says things like, Lord Belborough's Little Train was recorded at Sheffield Park Station on the Bluebell line in Sussex. In Cuthbert's Day Off, Cuthbert falls in Trumpton Park Pond.
Because Captain Flack surprises him. Not Captain Flack. No, it's Captain Flack.
I can't remember.
Sorry.
The loud splash effect was achieved by dropping a large object into the bath, thereby drenching my wall, ceiling and floor. It's a bit like Rose when she's drinking from her water bowl because she sticks her foot in it and waves,
shakes it out of the wall.
Shakes it all. So I can identify with that. But yeah, I mean, this is a wonderful, wonderful website, and just go and look at it. It's just fantastic.
And also, there's a book about Camberwick Green.
Yes,
written by Tim Worthington.
Tim Worthington's book.
And it's
was it the Trumptonshire Procrastination Society?
Like the Camberwick Green.
Sorry, the Camberwick Green. You see, I'm already getting the series mixed up in my head. Yes.
And it's basically every time he has to write something, when
he ends up writing about Camberwick Green instead,
yeah.
Which I can understand because there's an awful lot to say about the series. I mean, Windy Miller is I think one of the characters everybody remembers.
Yes.
We did briefly watch his episode, and it was flagged up recently on It's All Right, and it was all right in the 70s, wasn't it, about Windy getting peed up on cider?
Yes.
But this is quite a moralistic episode, actually.
It is, yeah.
Because Windy offers cider to Jonathan Bell,
who's the farmer,
and Brian Cant says, but Jonathan is driving, so he won't have any. So there's a lesson there for the kids.
You don't drink and drive.
Don't drink and drive. Windy has some cider and falls asleep.
Yeah. Then he
now as a kid, my granddad made cider and would give me cider occasionally, so I saw nothing wrong with that. When we had like bonfire night, I'd have a small glass of homemade cider.
Did it have wasps in it?
It didn't have wasps in it, but they were picked out beforehand, so I didn't drink wasps. But yes, strong cider can make you quite sleepy. Yes, that's fine. The sails stop turning on the windmill, so that's cause and effect.
Yeah.
If you drink too much cider, your windmill's going to stop. Right. And then they start whistling for the wind, don't they? And you said it's the only time you've ever seen their mouths on the puppets.
You don't see their mouths normally.
No. Yeah. It doesn't work. So immediately they don't send for the army in this case. The army just happens to be passing.
Yeah.
Oh, we should say about the army, when they march.
Oh God, they sound like Max Wall.
They sound like the noise that Max Wall used to make when he was doing his funny walk with his bendy legs. But yeah, the army turn up and they all whistle for the wind, and miraculously the sails do start turning again on the windmill. But I reckon one of the soldiers is probably a warlock, because that's the only explanation. I think it's Private Lumley. Yes, there is a Private Lumley. Oh, the soldier boys are Private Armitage, who's the best swimmer, Private Featherby, Private Hopwood, Private Meek, who's Mrs. Dingle's nephew, Private Higgins, who is the smartest looking soldier boy, and Private Lumley, who can't tell his left from his right.
Okay. The word soldier boys is slightly worrying.
Well, was it Captain Snort is a soldier man, Scarlet and Gold a soldier man. He'll work a boy as hard as he can to turn him into a soldier man. Captain Snort is a soldier man who lives in Pippin Fort.
Okay, that's slightly dodgy.
It's all right, but yeah, I mean there are some very weird songs.
You play me a bit of the Dustbinman one earlier. That's just
the Dustbinman.
I've never heard that
before. Quite one. What is it? It's something like we're efficient and thorough when we're cleaning up the borough or something.
It must take something ages to try and work out how to rhyme what to rhyme thorough with.
Yeah, but PC McGarry's got one of the best songs.
Oh, I love PC McGarry,
hasn't he? And we did ask Warren whether it's typical of his day. It starts off fine. Here comes the policeman, the big friendly policeman. PC McGarry number 452. Lost dogs, thick fogs, don't know what to do. Then get the policeman, the big friendly policeman. PC McGarry number 452. Fair enough. That's that's fine. Second verse gets a bit desperate.
Yeah.
Lost a key, cat up a tree, baby lost a shoe. Now, I don't think our local police station would be very impressed if you rang up their helpline and said, hello, my baby's lost a shoe. Can I have officers and cars respond to all calls about baby shoes? I think you'd get, a few words said to you.
I think you would. I think you'd be told to stop wasting
But
their time.
then Warren wasn't entirely sure PC McGarry was the best example of Village Bobby anyway. He said he was trying to sort of get Windy Miller as an informant about whether the kids were fishing without a licence or something. I can't remember what it was, but yes.
And Chigley's sort of...
Oh, yes.
Yeah, with Chigley, don't let Lord Belborough on anything that's not on Rouse.
Oh, Chigley is Lord Belborough of Winkstead Hall, and his very close friend, butler, Brackett. Mr. Bilton's the gardener, and yes, Mr. Bilton's got a motorised mower, and Lord Belborough gets it going it was still in gear and manages to demolish part of the garden wall.
Yeah, and has to send for the bricklayer.
Yes. There's the biscuit factory run by Mr. Cresswell. There's the barge, the pottery. There's
So Chigley's sort of industrial revolution.
Chigley's sort of light industry.
Yeah, but that's sort of, I always think of Chigley being the sort of industrial revolution.
Oh, I found the corporation dustmen, which is Mr. Gubbins and Mr. Sneed are the corporation dustmen.
Sneed?
Yes. Oh, Mr. Sneed. We are the corporation dustmen with the corporation dust cart. We do our job with zeal and with zest. We're efficient, quick and thorough. When we're cleaning up the borough, we're the corporation dustmen, we're the best.
Ooh.
That's good, isn't it?
It's good.
I like that.
Yeah.
So some of these songs are utterly forgotten.
Yes.
But
I don't think anybody thinks of the corporation dustman.
No. But yeah, it's just such a marvellous series with so much sort of depth and texture to it.
And you can just watch it again and again.
Yeah.
And see. Yes, we do tend to take the mickey out of it a little bit because, they're called the fire brigade out for everything.
I only take the mickey out of things I love.
Yes.
And I do love Gordon Murray's work. And Brian Cant's narration is just
perfect.
Absolutely perfect. Yeah. It's a lovely, warm, inclusive
He makes you
voice.
feel like part of the world. As we were saying in the previous article about Brian Cant, he's giving it his all. He's not being patronising. He's drawing you in.
Yeah.
He's the perfect storyteller.
Yeah. It's just such a lovely series.
It is a lovely series. And if you've never seen it, or if you're in a country where they've never shown it, look it up on YouTube. You won't be sorry.
Yeah, I think that's all I want to say on the works of Gordon Murray today. But it's just marvellous. And I think that's just about the end of this episode.
Yes, and we're sorry if it's nearly 2 hours long.
It's just
spiraled out of control.
It's spread this one. But yeah, episode 13 is now being planned, isn't it? So we'll bid you a fairly rapid goodbye now, and hope to see you back soon. We'll just jam in a very quick sketch and do the end credits, and we'll be back at some point, or fairly soon.
Yes.
Goodbye then.
Bye.
Bye. Here is a podcast, an audio podcast, recorded and ready to play. This podcast contains some articles inside. Can you guess who's contributed today? It's Andrew and Lisa. Hello, Andrew and Lisa. How are you? Oh, not very happy? Is it PC Warren? Has he fallen out of a tree again? Oh, you've run out of time and can't do an end sketch after all. Well, good night then. Troby likes cider. That was episode 12 of Round the Archives, starring Lisa Parker, Andrew Trowbridge and Warren Cummings, with Nick Goodman, Michael Seeley and Paul Chandler.
On the musical side, you heard Dan Tate and Paul Chandler.
The script for The Changes was by Anna Home and Peter Dickinson.
And the producer was Anna Home.
White horse, bring me good luck. Good luck to you.
Good luck to me.
Good luck,
Good luck to everyone we see.